like again, a type of economic immaturity that I think we have to address and confront. And the reason it's important to confront this is because I think that that's deliberately marketed to us. I think that the economic immaturity of rappers is heavily promoted to the black male to make sure that he remains uncompetitive. If you read books like Powernomics with Dr. Claude Anderson, Dr. Anderson basically states clearly that the goal of the slave master was to make sure that black people were very loyal but uncompetitive, sort of labor class. That we were going to show up and come to work every day and never challenge the system, but at the same time, we were never actually going to think that we were in a position to actually compete. And so I think economic immaturity, if you read my book, The Ten Commandments of Black Economic Power, you'll know that I've talked about economic maturity a lot in terms of just what that really looks like and what that means, right? So if you haven't got a copy of the book, you can go to drboycebooks.com and take a look. And it's really something I encourage you to really think about. In order for you to compete like a grown man or a grown woman, you've got to commit to being a grown man or a grown woman. And that means sacrifice. That means that you can't just engage in pleasure-seeking behavior all the time, because pleasure-seeking behavior typically comes to things that lead to a dopamine response, like sex or drugs or alcohol or consuming, even spending all your money at the mall can lead to you to a feel good vibe, right? There's a lot of research behind this. And so, again, not to sit here and pretend to be a monk or a perfect person or somebody who is always disciplined all the time. We all go through it, right? Like there are times where I'm not disciplined in terms of what I should be eating. My wife will say, "Hey, boys, you know you should not be putting that in your mouth." And I'm like, "Yeah, but the chicken is so good, baby. It's just so good." You know, and so, really, if you think about this, though, this comes back to investing. This is an investing concept. All investing is, I mean, y'all understand, like, in fact, one of the greatest investors of all time, Warren Buffett, just announced his retirement yesterday. I should acknowledge that because Buffett's one of the greats. And one of the things that Buffett always said is he basically said that wealth in America, a lot of wealth in America really is a transfer of economic power from undisciplined people to disciplined people. That's it. He just said that, look, if you are undisciplined, then eventually somebody's going to take all your money and take all your power, and you're going to give it away to them because you're thinking about instant gratification. You know, you're trying to get to the dopamine, which might mean drugs, maybe which are very expensive. It might mean sex, which is very expensive. It might mean spending money at the mall, which is also very expensive. So one of the things I just have to say is it's really hard to get around delayed gratification and discipline as a key requirement for wealth building, right? You have to be disciplined and committed when it comes to something. In fact, did y'all know this? There's a study they did with little children at Stanford University, the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment, very famous, where they had these children and they just tested their ability to delay gratification. They tested their discipline level, and they found that the kids who showed a little bit of ability to wait for the good reward, to be patient, who were willing to sacrifice, those kids all throughout their lives ended up being extremely successful. And the kids who couldn't wait, the kids who always had to have it now, who wanted to have the feel good moment now, they didn't have good lives. And it made me think about college when I remember I had friends that would party all the time and they would say, "Well, why don't you come to the party with us?" And I would be like, "Well, I mean, I like having fun just like you do." And because they would literally be like, "Well, don't you like having fun?" And I was like, "Yeah, I like having fun just like you do, but I also want to have fun my whole life. I don't want to just have fun while I'm 22 and then suffer for the next 30 years. I want to have fun. I'll have a little fun now, but I want to have a lot of fun when I'm 22, 32, 42, 52, and 62. That to me is a much more rewarding outcome than having all my fun now. And and I don't know why people don't get that. And I think sometimes a lot of it's culture, a lot of it's how you were raised. In the Black Business School, for example, we have a model for wealth building for kids called the KID model. KID stands for knowledge, investment, discipline. And all that pretty much means is number one, Every black child should be financially literate. Every black child should understand stock market investing, real estate investing, entrepreneurship. Every black child should know how to start a business by the age of 12. Every black child should have somebody buying stock for them when they're a baby. And then investment means that every parent that loves their kids should be investing for their children at an early age as well. They should be basically buying shares of stock for them on a consistent basis. You should love your child as much as you love your cell phone. You should love your child as much as you love your car. You should love your child as much as you love, in whatever mo other monthly bill that you have. So the amount that you put on that car, $500 a month, you should be putting that toward the family fund, $500 a month. You do that. If you do that one basic thing, just love your child as much as you love your car, then guess what? Your child will never have to work for anyone their whole entire life. And if you don't, then that's okay. I mean, you're kind of engaging in the old Negro tradition of signing your child up for slavery. Right? That's what we do. We say, no, I ain't got nothing for you. You gonna get it out the mud, you little Negro. And then you send them off, and they go to college and stuff, and you think it's character building, but unfortunately, you're just turning them into a cartoon character. That's what you're making them into, a character. And the character is the step and fetch it Negro who has to do what white folks tell him to do, who has to pretty much bow to authority his whole life, who can't actually have any control over their own destiny. And so they end up with all these student loans, and then they end up on the corporate plantation on some black job. And as we know in this class by now, black jobs have very little relationship to black wealth. Black jobs and black wealth do not live in the same space. People that have black wealth, they might have had a black job, but it was typically temporary and it was only supplementary. It was a component of their income. It was not all their income. So even those of us that have the black jobs, some of you have good black jobs, and I'm happy for you. The black job should be seen almost like you're a corporation, where your black job is one stream of income, but then you got two or three others that are going on too. You've also, maybe you're selling stock options. Maybe you own some real estate. Maybe you have a little small business. Maybe you have some investments, right? Everybody should have that going on economically. So there you go. There's a little tip for a Sunday morning. Now let's talk about real estate. I wanted to talk to you guys about some things in real estate that that maybe no one told you about, and some little phantom tricks that they use in real estate. In case you decide to buy property and stuff. I'm actually actually came down to Atlanta. I guess I was thinking about real estate because my wife and I own a property in Atlanta that I stay in when I come down here and to visit, and it was an interesting process to buy the house, and we love it. We just bought it because we just liked it so much, and I'm actually in that house right now as I talk to you, and it's and I was thinking about what I like about the house. And I told my wife, I said, gosh, I just love being in this house. It's just so nice, and it feels good, and it's just, it's, and I don't know, something about being a black man where you just own something. It's like, yeah, this is mine, and I don't know why. Maybe it's ego. I hope it's not, but it's pride too. And maybe pride is bad. They say pride before the fall. I don't want to be too prideful. That's not the goal. But it's like, okay, this is all right. This to me, and I think what makes me happy about it is it's better than how I grew up. I grew up seeing a lot of black men who are not happy with their lives, who did not feel that they controlled their own destiny. I grew up seeing a lot of men that, where their destiny was controlled by drugs, or maybe their destiny was controlled by white folks, or their destiny was shaped by chasing women or chasing pleasure, things like that. And I think that's probably why the Shannon Sharp thing triggered me so much. It's because it's like, Lord Jesus, are we really going to be dragged around by our nose, by some external thing? Like, do we have that a desire to shape our own reality, or do we just feel so weak and empowered that we just will just make mistake after mistake, and then just say, well, it's only because we're black. It's because we're being black, you can't do nothing. You can't accomplish nothing. And I don't believe that. I think we can do anything we want. So, speaking on real estate, let me just say, I don't like being a landlord. I've told you guys about that's my personal preference. Being a landlord, it's something that you do if you enjoy it, but if you don't enjoy it, I think I found the better way to generate income is by selling stock options and things like that. And that's what we do. We talk about that a lot. But one thing about real estate, though, is real estate is a strong, reliable wealth builder. In fact, there are studies that show that number one, did y'all know this? That homeowners just by owning a home. Homeowners have 40 times more wealth than renters. How many of y'all knew that? So again, we talk about black wealth, and you hear politicians all the time. They'll talk about the racial wealth gap, the racial wealth gap, and that's it. They'll just say, "Oh, it's racism," and that's it. They don't actually try to figure out why it exists, why it persists, why it's growing, how to end it. That's not that they're not interested in that. They're just interested in the problem because then the solution is, well, make sure you vote for my political party, right? Um, well, check this out. According to the Federal Reserve, the median net worth of a homeowner is about a quarter million dollars, 255,000 to be exact, while the median net worth of a renter is just $6,300. Now, one thing about wealth that I want you to understand is that when you're making those monthly payments as a renter, that wealth is not disappearing. Just because you ain't got the money don't mean the money went away. Do y'all understand? No, you're broke, but that doesn't mean everybody's broke, right? You ain't got no money, but somebody has your money. Do you follow what I'm saying? Like, stop thinking that because you're struggling, that everybody's struggling. That's not true. Or because inflation hurts you, that it hurts everybody. No, there are people that benefit from inflation. If more money's coming out of your pocket, that means more money's going into somebody else's pocket. So the goal of this Scooby Doo mystery should be to figure out, well, whose pocket is my money going into? And then also, how do I get to where they're at? How do I become the person who's receiving as opposed to the one who's giving? Okay, because you deserve to receive, and you can give, but you got to receive too. So here's what I want you to understand. Renters make landlords very rich. That's your job as a rent. You're paying your rent every month because you want to be a good citizen with a good credit score. Which we talked about credit scores. Credit scores ain't everything. They're good, they're important, but credit scores, they're like this mechanism for survival. Like it's like if your credit score is good, they'll loan you enough money so you can make it so you can survive your way to your next economic crisis, right? Or so you can have just enough to make sure that you're healthy enough to keep coming to work every day. That's kind of what that it's not really built for you to really thrive, in my opinion, unless you really think things through. The good thing though, the good news for you, honestly though, is I'm really proud of those of you who've been coming to class every day because I am fully confident that you are so far ahead of regular people. If you don't believe me, go talk to anybody in your family who doesn't do stuff like this. You get some of y'all get up in here every day. I see a lot of the same names every day, and I just respect you so much for this because I guarantee you that if you go talk to some of your relatives who don't do this kind of stuff, they don't even know the basic things that we talk about in here. They wouldn't even know the basics. So you get out here, they get out here in this competitive economic world, in this capitalist society where money is power. Money is warfare. Money is the number one tool of oppression, not just racist oppression. The capitalism will oppress everybody, right? It's just they'll do extra oppression for black people because black people are the most vulnerable. But the goal of capitalism is it's the demonic evil pimp that will exploit whatever weakness you have. It's like a cancer. Cancer don't care. It doesn't care if you're more vulnerable because you have diabetes. It doesn't have any preference for taking advantage of your diabetes. It just sees the diabetes as an opportunity. But you could also have, something else. You could have heart disease, and the cancer's like, okay, well, you ain't got diabetes. Well, I'll take advantage of your heart disease, right? It doesn't care. So the cancerous capitalism, not that all capitalism is cancerous, but there is such a thing as cancerous predatory capitalism. Cancerous predatory capitalism does not really care that you're black, but it knows that you're black. You understand? It's not like, oh, I'm only going to do this to black people because they're black. No, they're doing it because they're like, oh, well, blackness is already a disparity that you're going to have to overcome. That's a weak spot. So I'm gonna hit you in your weak spot. I'm gonna hit you where it hurts. Right? Like people that kick you in your testicles, they don't have a special affinity for testicles. They just kick the testicles because that's the weakest part of your body if you're a man. Right? If your testicles, if your weakest spot was in your neck, they would kick you in your neck. Do you understand? So ultimately, um, predatory, cancerous, exploitative capitalism, it's a lot of it's really built on taking advantage of any area where they can kind of get you, right? So that means if you're not prepared, if you don't have a capital base of your own, then that becomes your weak spot. I get you because you're financially desperate because you got to find a place to live. If you're not financially literate and you don't know what the hell's going on, then that becomes your weak spot. Okay, I'm gonna take advantage of you because you're not prepared. You don't Nobody taught you anything, right? And what's unfortunate about being black is that we kind of get like that triple whammy of all these things. Or if your weakness is women, you chasing women, you like to go, then you're gonna go broke because of your women, Shannon Sharp. If you or Bill Cosby, whatever. If your weakness is drugs, well then drugs will get you. If your weakness is your self-esteem, then consumerism will get you. They'll say, "Oh, here, well, buy this Gucci bag, and you'll have your self-esteem back. You'll be proud of yourself again. You'll feel good about yourself." Right? And so a lot of times the pathway to wealth comes down to finding the least expensive way for you to get all the things you need, right? So it's cheaper to maybe get some therapy or learn self-love than it is to just go spend money at the mall every time you're feeling bad about yourself, right? Or maybe it's cheaper to find a good woman that loves you than to go chase random women on OnlyFans because you have an issue with your mother not being there when you were a baby, right? So anyway, with that said, this to me is what's fascinating about it. I really every day I wake up and I think about this sort of gap and this disparity, and I literally see it in different ways all the time because ultimately it comes down to preparation, right? So let's talk more about real estate specifically. Actually, before I do that though, I want to remind everybody the Economic Elevation Summit happens in 5 days. So that's going to be in Miami. I hope you'll come down. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to hang out and learn wealth together, but also connect. That's the next important step. Do projects, very active, very engaged. Like let's create something now. Let's build something now. So if you want to fly down, it's not too late. You can go to economicelevationsummit.com. Amani's in the chat today. So thank you, Amani, for sharing that. So economicelevationsummit.com. If you can't come and you want to watch virtually, you can watch virtually. So the virtual passes are on the website as well. And yeah, so feel free to take a look at that. All right, so here we go. Number two, 90%. Did y'all know this? 90% of all millionaires own real estate. So one good way to become rich is to do what rich people do. Number three, real estate tends to go up over time. On average, real estate goes up 3 to 5% per year, every year, and that exceeds the rate of inflation. So one way people fight inflation is through what they call it's like this. Let me use this analogy. Um, I think I saw something where if I'm trying to make sure I get it right. There was like a place that had like what is it? It's like rodents. Like, isn't it like something where if you have a rat problem, you get another rodent that will eat the rats? Is it the cats? Do the cats eat the rats? Or something or what you know what I mean like if you have a rodent and you want to kill that rodent you just get a bigger rodent but maybe it's cats and rats maybe it's something else, right? So basically what happens with inflation is inflation's like this little rodent, and sometimes a bigger rodent will eat the smaller rodent, right? So one way that people fight inflation is getting more inflation to fight the inflation that they're already dealing with. Let me explain. There's something called asset inflation. Asset inflation is bigger and more insidious than regular inflation. Asset inflation represents the inflation in the values and the prices of assets that you own. So ultimately, when you're talking about owning a home, your value of your home most of the time is going to rise at a rate faster than the cost of eggs at the grocery store. Your stocks are another form of asset inflation. That's going to rise, especially the last 15 years. The stock market has just shot through the roof. So people who have been invested in the stock market, inflation's not a problem for them. They're like, yeah, okay, I lost $1 here, but I made $3 over there. And if you're making more than what you're losing, then you win. It's like a basketball game. If the other team scores 100 points, it's only a bad thing if you can't score 101. If you can score 101 points, then who cares if they score 100? They can score 1,000 as long as you have 1,001. Do you see? So ultimately, when you're talking about fighting against inflation, asset inflation is something that occurs for people that own financial assets, and that exceeds regular inflation. So the an annual appreciation of real estate is not just something that's beneficial, but it's also something that is it's beneficial if you're an owner. It's a barrier if you're not an owner, right? So a lot of Gen Zers are struggling because asset inflation has priced them out of the ability to buy a home. Now, two things are true. Number one, if the Gen Zers had some Gen X parents that did something like a $5 a day investing plan for them, then they wouldn't have that problem because they'd have enough asset inflation to allow them to buy that first house. Um, my wife bought her first house because of her great grandfather bought World War II savings bonds in the 1940s, and they had appreciated enough that it was enough money for her to get over the hurdle of home ownership. If she did not have a great grandfather who loved her, then that wouldn't have happened. And I do believe that there's such a thing as economic love. If I love you, I'm not just going to say I love you. Love is not just a feeling, love is an act. How can I say I love you if I don't act like I love you? You got to act like you love your kids. And if I know that if I love you, I'm going to protect you, right? Protecting you from the things that will harm you. There's no greater harm to young black people, in my opinion, than the harm of the economic desperation that requires them to get up and go to work every day for their oppressor. Like there's no greater harm than that. Even police, we get caught up in police brutality, and I agree that's a bad thing when it happens for sure. But how many of y'all got children that have been shot by the police? Like, most of y'all ain't got sons that have been shot by the police. But I guarantee you, a lot of y'all got kids that have to go deal with horrible white folks every day on the job. And that deteriorates their mental health, stresses them out, leaves you with high cortisol levels, fight or flight mode, high cortisol and all that. That leads to depression, anxiety, cancers, heart disease, strokes, diabetes, all these other problems, alcoholism, drug addiction, right? Things like that, right? So to me, if I love you, I protect you. If I protect you, that means I'm going to do something to make sure that you're good. So the best thing I can do for you is to invest for you because I want to make sure you're safe. So, with that said, um, rental property owners earn up to $100,000 a year. This is another stat. 30% of people that own rental property own six figures or make six figures a year. Also, real estate is the number one inflation hedge. So typically what happens is that when you have high inflation, the price of real estate goes up. So those who buy real estate end up in better spots. So here are a few things. So first of all, let me ask you all this. How many of you either own real estate or plan to buy it at some point in your life? Give me a yes in the chat if you either own it or you want to go get it. And maybe I hope I thoroughly convinced you that owning real estate is really, really, really a beneficial thing for you. And I want to make that clear. I want to take my time on that point just because sometimes when people hear me say I hated being a landlord and I sold a property because I just bought some stock and started selling the options, I was making more money that way. It's almost sounds like me saying like real estate's bad. Don't do real estate. I don't say that. I would never say that. Real estate's important also for diversification. I own my property for two reasons. One, it makes me happy, and two, it diversifies me away from the stock market. You don't want to have all your money in one place. That's a really important wealth principle that you should embrace, in my opinion. You should consider embracing. Okay, great. All right, so let me tell you about five little things regarding real estate that you may want to look out for. You may want to think this through. And just as a reference, we teach real estate to children in a couple places in the Black Business School. One is if you go to blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com, we have a whole business school for children, a whole curriculum, whole everything. So blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com, you can go take a look at that. We have a whole thing called 15 Things Every Black Child Should Know About Real Estate, as well as some other training on stock market, stuff like that. And then second of all, we have workbooks and flashcards. So if you go to financialflashcards.com, we have some real estate flashcards. That's financialflashcards.com. So feel free to go take a look. Summertime's coming, so you're going to need something to do with your kids. I think preparing them for the future is a great thing to do. You remember your house is your kid's school, in my opinion. You should be the one educating them, not just the public school. All right, so a few things that you may not know about real estate that you may want to keep in mind when you go buy a house. Number one, a lot of people don't know that there's this thing called phantom bids where agents will sometimes, not all the time, but they will create fake bids to inflate the value of the property to make you bid more, right? It sounds like something that should be illegal, and I think it is in most places, but sometimes, but there's ways around that. So the whole phantom bidding process is interesting because I thought about that, right? Because I was at this event in Atlanta called it was for this organization called Auntie Angie's House. And Angela Stanton King, she finds mothers that are thinking about terminating their babies or terminating their pregnancies, and she helps them. She supports them by letting them move into Auntie Angie's house, and they can feed the kids and take care of them. I mean, I have a special heart for that. I've given them some money, and there was a little boy who was one of the babies that she saved. And this little boy became an artist. He was like 3 years old and he did these little paintings and stuff. And they were auctioning off his art, right? So this little 3-year-old boy was sitting on the stage, standing on the stage, and they were auctioning this boy's art. And I said, man, this is so great. And so I bid on it, right? And when I bid on it, I was sitting there thinking to myself, I want to support, but I really don't want to have to pack a big ass painting in my suitcase. I don't have any room in my suitcase. So what if I win this auction and I end up having to get this paint? I was like, oh, you know what? I think I'll just tell them to keep it. You know, what? I just keep the money, whatever. But then I was also thinking about how me bidding on this kid's painting, even if I don't win, that's gonna boost the price of the painting, right? Because I was like, I don't want them to auction off this little kid's painting and nobody bids on it. That's gonna just ruin his self-esteem for life. So I bid, I bid a couple of times, and I was like thinking that this is kind of a phantom bid. Not that I won't pay, but it's like I'm kind of doing it because I really want other people to bid. And fortunately, I was lucky. There were no assholes in the room, and people bid, a good price, and everybody bought his stuff. But still, though, that probably happens a lot in the art market. I mean, the art market is fascinating because you'll hear crazy stuff like how somebody pays $6 million for a banana duct tape to a wall. And what happens, I think, is that people don't understand where valuation comes from. One of the areas that I specialized in my doctoral work was asset pricing. Like where does an asset's price come from? They call it price discovery. Like how do you discover what an asset is really worth? Like and I hear people use terminology that connects to that on the internet all the time, where they'll say, "I know my worth. I know my worth." I'm like, "Well, do you know your worth? How do you discover your worth? What validates your worth?" And then that leads to this whole discussion about the validation process. So when I say the word validation, that means a lot to me because it links to price discovery. It's like, well, where are you seeking the validation to determine where your worth is, right? If you seek it internally, you might get a different number than if you seek it externally. If you're looking for white folks to tell you what you're worth, then your conclusion might be different if you're getting it than if you're getting it from your family or from yourself. And also, asset prices can be very flimsy, right? And so to be more specific, if you talk about the art world, I think the art world is full of insane amounts of corruption and money laundering. And a lot of it has to do with valuations. Whenever I see a painting or a crypto where somebody's like, this person paid $250,000 for a picture of a monkey, I'm like, ain't no monkey ever been worth $250,000. There is no $250,000 monkey ever to exist in the history of all mankind. But the reason that this is a $250,000 monkey is because somebody paid $250,000 for that monkey. So, what could have happened? Well, it could be that somehow I'm just, I guess, grossly misinformed on the value of monkey pictures, or it could be that maybe there's something else going on. Maybe there is a process, a phantom bidding process, where someone bids a high price for something to make it appear to be worth more than what it is, right? Because if everybody's hearing about the $250,000 monkeys and you're the artist that sold the $250,000 painting of a monkey, then that might make other people want to pay that amount of money for the art. I think that that manipulation is done all the time. I think the music industry was heavy in manipulating the price of those ETFs. I think they were doing it like they're like, okay, Snoop Dogg paid, $10 million for some virtual property or whatever, right? And it's like, no, that ain't all happened. That's all just they're playing games with you. Or I remember somebody who announced that there was a rapper who gave a $10 million scholarship to their organization. And I said, I bet you that $10 million didn't actually exchange hands. I bet you they valued the scholarship at $10 million and then may allowed him to kind of make the donation, kind of be associated with the donation, right? So the other thing too with that in terms of phantom bidding is the money laundering piece. I think that, like if somebody pays $5 million for a painting that looks pretty worthless, I think that that's their way of laundering money to the other party, right? Like it looks like I'm buying your $5 million painting, but really I'm buying $5 million worth of Coke. Right? So that's another little thing I think that happens. That's just stuff that goes through my mind when we talk about phantom bids. Also, there's something called dual agency conflicts that can happen a lot in real estate. And this is when one agent represents both the buyer and the seller, and that can lead to a conflict of interest because what happens is that their goal is not to get the best price. Their goal is to get a sale done, period. They just want a transaction. So sometimes in financial transactions, you have scenarios where people are not rewarded for getting the best deal and doing the right thing. They're rewarded for making something happen, making a deal go down. And you got to be careful about that. There's also hidden repair costs. A lot of sellers will, if there's something, if you get caught up, if you buy a property and you're caught up in what something looks like, you can easily miss out on a lot of really important aspects of the property that you might not have paid attention to because you're just so caught up in what it, and how it looks. So a lot of times sellers will do cosmetic repairs that are covering up deeper issues that are going to be very costly later on. So I've seen a lot of people buy property and then end up pouring so much money into it that they wish they'd never bought it. Also, this is another little trick that a lot of developers use to make money is a lot of developers and insiders, they typically know about zoning changes that are going to occur in the future. And so they make their moves with this inside information. And one of the things about financial markets of any type, real estate, stocks, etc., is inside information typically gives you an advantage on people that don't have inside information. Crypto is a market that's driven heavily by a lot of inside information, so you got to be really careful when you navigate the crypto space. There's a lot of dirty players up, in that market. Also, real estate investment trusts, they are kind of sinister in terms of the real estate market. What's happened in real estate that's really unfortunate is that America is a country that is kind of lawless when it comes to its commitment to capitalism. America is not a country that, in my view, makes laws that are there to benefit the public. Uh, America is a country where it's like, well, who has the most money? Okay, you can pass a law and we'll give you whatever you want. And I think that that's really sad. I talked to somebody in Denmark once about these companies, BlackRock and stuff. They go around and buy up all the houses. Like I'm in Atlanta right now, and BlackRock and these big companies are buying tons of houses here, so it's pushing up property values and stuff like that. And he told me that when they tried to do the same thing in Denmark, the government basically made a law that said you can't do that. They made a law where they basically said if you buy property here, you have to live in it for 5 years and you can't raise the rent for 5 years. So there's something crazy, something where they knew that that a company like a BlackRock could not actually do. And so they couldn't go to Denmark and take advantage of them. And that's, it's just like the movie Sinners, like there's some people who don't let the vampires into the house. They don't, if that was what the whole movie was about. It was this black owned space where the vampires are trying to sneak their way in. And the way they got in was through money. There was the lady that went and got some money from them, and she came back, and next thing somebody gets their neck bit. And to some extent, if you one way to avoid that is I think when you're talking about protecting your spaces and maintaining your ownership, you have to have something that money can't buy. Like the NFL has protected their ownership and made it pretty sacred because they pretty much decided a long time ago that you can't just buy your way into the NFL. They told Donald Trump that 40 years ago. Donald Trump tried to buy an NFL team. They said, "Nah, we don't like you. You can't. We're not letting you. You're not one of us. They not like us. We're not going to let you buy your way into a team. You could have $1 trillion, and we're still not going to sell to you." And so that's why Trump created the whole USFL was because he was so mad that the NFL wouldn't sell him a piece of a team. And so the question then for you at the end of the day will be, what do you own in your life that money can't buy? And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about price discovery in asset pricing. Knowing your worth. See, part of knowing your worth, the beauty of knowing your worth is that there's really kind of a reality where you can manifest and decide what your worth is going to be. Do you see what I mean? Like when they say know your worth, I think that that comes down to knowing yourself. Because then if you know yourself and then you'll know your worth because you'll know what worth that you're going to decide that you actually have. You know what price people will have to pay to get access to whatever it is that you have to offer, right? Like if I know my worth and I know myself and I value myself and I love myself and I paint a painting and you say, "Well, boys, how much is that painting going to cost?" I'll come back, I might be like, "For you, it'll be $8 billion." And you might say, well, who the hell are you to charge $8 billion for a painting? I'd be like, well, because I'm the person who gets to decide what this painting is going to be worth. I'm pricing this asset, not you. And really, truth is, at the end of the day, I don't want you to have this anyway. If I wanted you to have it, then the price would be like $100. But I don't like your ass, so you can't buy this. Like, and I'll tell you one person who did this that I thought, and I really was impressed by this. Bill Cosby. Y'all don't know this, but did you know, anybody know how much Bill Cosby's speaking fee was before he got hit up with all them crazy charges? Bill Cosby, literally, his speaking fee used to be $250,000 a speech. He was, and here's the thing. He was famous. He was a big shot, but very few people could afford $250,000 a speech. That's a lot of, even in the big speaker circuit stuff. I've seen a lot of people get 25, 30, 40, 50,000 as much, 60,000. Obama's maybe 100,000. $250,000 is kind of outrageous. But when I saw the price, I knew exactly why he was doing it. He was doing it because he really didn't want to give speeches anyway, right? And he did it because he wanted to maintain control, power over where he spoke and where he didn't. Because so what Cosby would do, I know that his legacy, has been tainted by some unfortunate situations that unfortunately he chose to put himself into those situations. And I admire him. And when we did talk, I told him I support you. I said, but I kind of I'm kind of sad that it had to come to this, right? The bunch of white women running around with $250 million a year of your black wealth. That I don't like that. I wish that money had gone to Morehouse or Spelman or Hampton or you know what I mean, like or black owned businesses. The Black Business School. We could have used some of that, but whatever, right? We talked about this, right? Just the lack of discipline being used as a tool to extract wealth out of our people. But one thing that I will say though that I did admire was I was like, okay, I get it now. What Cosby would do is if you were a regular person or if you were someone where he didn't want to speak or whatever, he would charge you the 250,000. But then if you were like a black owned school or an elementary school that he admired, the speaking fee would drop to zero. He wouldn't charge you anything, right? And that was him saying, look, I don't want to be dragged around by money. I don't want money to control me. I want to control it, right? So I really would say that when you're talking about pricing something and choosing your economic spaces and whatever it is that you choose to do, I really encourage you to just realize that the world does not get to decide what you're worth, right? And this goes down to anything that you have that's valuable. If it's your time with your children, like people should not be able to buy your children. We got kids for sale out here. We got kids. Let's just be honest. Like, you really think R. Kelly had to go and seduce all those little girls that were around him? You think R. Kelly, you think, I mean, the Pied Piper, greatest, most talented singer out, right up there with Michael Jackson, world famous, tons of money. You really think he had to go chase down women, to have around him? No, they were offered to him. People would sell their kids for fame. They sell their kids for a chance to be in the studio with a celebrity and all this other stuff. It's sick. It's truly sick. And so really I think that there should just be some like sacred spaces. Like this is a cultural thing. Like what are your and this is in the movie Sinners taps into that. That's what I like about that movie is I ask like what is it in this capitalist society? What is it that we can have in our community that is just so sacred that you just can't buy this? Let me throw out some ideas. I think the Negro Leagues were sacred. Major League Baseball can kiss my whole entire black ass. I have never watched the movie 42 because I don't celebrate the Jackie Robinson nonsense. I don't. Jackie Robinson did not become a better baseball player just because he was playing with the white boys. He didn't. Right? It was all about the money. It's like, oh, this big league, they got all this money, and that's the big time. You're the big. I hate that. I hate when people are like, boys, you got millions of followers. One day you're gonna be big time. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was big time 15 years ago. You think that this being discovered by Christopher Columbus would make my work more relevant? Gain some self-respect. Know your worth, Negro. I'm sorry, again, because maybe it's because I specialize in asset pricing. Maybe that helped me to know my worth. Oh, I knew my worth back before I ever appeared on TV. I'm just happy that somebody else is noticing the worth, right? I know your worth. I don't need, see, this is the thing about the validation. Know your damn worth. Know the price of your asset. Discover that price and you discover it on the inside. Stop discovering it on the outside. when, because if you need other people to discover your worth, then they might attach a price tag on your black ass that you don't actually like. Like what are some more sacred spaces where we can know our worth and then this just becomes a valuable asset just because we've made it that. Again, black owned businesses, I think art can be sacred spaces. Like the question then becomes like, are there any black owned businesses that we should just never sell, no matter how much money you offer? Well, let's think about that. The United States government has certain laws in place where there's certain industries we will not sell because of national security. They say, no, you cannot own our airlines. You cannot own all of our television networks, no matter how much money you have. The Chinese government, there's certain businesses in China you will never be allowed to buy, no matter how much money you bring to the table. That might be an idea to kind of consider, right? When you think about sacred spaces. Because if you are a person that thinks everything's for sale, then the devil's going to show up with a pocket full of money and a big smile on his face. He's going to be your ally. And he's going to throw a bunch of money on the table, make you an offer you can't refuse. And then the next thing you know, you've been infiltrated. Just like the movie Sinners, the vampires showed up with money. That was the first, money was the first thing the vampires used to get into black culture, to sneak in and to suck the blood and the life out of black culture. That's what they did. They used money. Money was the first tool that they used. And then, when you talk about sacred spaces, like what else could be a sacred space? I happen to think the black family is something that should never be for sale. I think the black family has a value that is worth far more than any amount of money. Well, where are we selling the black family? Well, I talked about how, you had those little R. Kelly girls being sold by their parents who were addicted to the dream of fame and fortune. We sell our little black boys, to these sports leagues, because we want them to be the next LeBron or the next NFL star. Nothing against sports. Sports is fine. But I think that when you have your little boy where he doesn't have a future, his reading, writing, and math is not up to par. He knows nothing about wealth, but all he knows how to do is dribble a basketball and throw a football. I think that you've done him a disservice. I think that this child could have, we could have loved him a little bit better. Um, I would say the black families for sale, when you think about even the way we get misled and misguided by capitalism mixed blended with things like feminism, where we convince a mother that you're only worth something if you leave your children 10 hours a day to go and work in a factory or an office. I don't think that that makes logical sense all the time. I'm not saying that women can't work or shouldn't work. I'm not saying none of that. I'm saying that who decided that your black job was more important than your black children? Who told you that? Who told you that? I mean, and you think about this, there are people that literally will not even have children just so they can focus on their career. Like that job is that important that you won't even have a legacy now because you really want to go to work that bad? That's not, I don't know if that's mentally healthy. It's up to every person to decide how to play that. But I don't. But now at 53, I realize there's no career more valuable than family. Um, where else do we sell? What else? I would say also in terms of other sacred spaces, I think the black woman's womb is sacred. I think the black man's seed is sacred because that's how you reproduce. That's how you exist. That's how you live. There's nothing more valuable than being alive. And the fact that we're trained to distribute our seed just any and everywhere, and or that women are share themselves with men that shouldn't have access to themselves. I think that that's a price discovery process. And from in terms of like a market, I think that like really just it seems like the market's just been flooded with just cheap vagina, and it's made us forget the worth of the black woman's womb. Like you can only produce a black baby from a black woman, right? Uh, so ultimately, I think that that is a space that should be sacred. It should never be for sale. Um, and I could keep going. There are other things out there that I think could be defined as sacred spaces. And what the point I want to really impress upon you, this is the point I want you to walk away with, is that when anybody tells you what the price of something is, or they tell you the worth of something, I encourage you to really think about that very carefully. Because there are people that will tell you, even when people talk about dating, like they'll say stuff like, well, you're a mother with three kids. What makes you think you're worthy of a man of this caliber? Or you're a short man and you don't even make that much money. You're not worth, what makes you think you're worthy? You're worth having a woman at this level. And I think that that's just very strange, right? It doesn't add up because really at the end of the day, when you talk about how you value anything, the worth of anything, a person, a job, a piece of art, it all comes down to those fundamentals of price discovery. And I think that if you really want to become a master of the universe, you would learn that all that starts inside. So before you go and ask the world, what am I worth? You need to go ask that question in the mirror first. Because I guarantee you that when you look in the mirror and you make a decision about what you're worth, and then you see that worth, and then you see the potential worth that can come through further investment in that asset called you. I guarantee you what's going to happen is that the world will eventually align itself to what you're presenting, right? If I show up to you as a person who saw my worth, I'm not for sale for anybody. But then on top of that, not only did I see my worth, but I invested in that, right? Because we invest in things that are valuable. We invest in things because we believe they have potential. We invest in things because that's the best use of our energy. So because I defined myself as a worthy individual, I invested in myself as an asset because I know that I'm worth all that. And then guess what? I show up in the world as an asset where eventually others will see the same valuation, same worth that I saw. And it usually works out that way. Now, the reality is that sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the world never sees your worth, even when you saw it and even when you poured into it and invested in it. But still though, you have a lot of say in that process. So one of the best things I ever did, when I started doing this stuff that I do now is I really challenged myself to really see my worth and be convinced of that worth, even if nobody else saw it. And what that does is that builds the self-love that helps you to withstand the criticism or to withstand well, what do I do if everybody hates me because of something I said? What do I do if I get blackballed? What do I do if I get rejected in certain spaces that maybe I would have wanted to be in before? Well, if you know your worth, then you don't need all that in order to be validated. Find your self-worth internally. If you do that and find it among either internally or in the spaces that you care about. Don't let just any and everybody tell you what you're worth. That is not healthy. That is not mentally healthy and that's not financially healthy. It's not healthy at all because because valuations are arbitrary for the most part. They really are quite arbitrary. That's my 2 cents. All right. So I hope that that makes sense. I hope I didn't get too theoretical, but it's Sunday, so why not get spiritual on a Sunday? I one day when we're bored on a Saturday night, maybe when I'm like half asleep, I'll tell you all about something I saw where there's this scientist who was talking about consciousness and he was relating it to quantum mechanics and how basically we think of the brain as the originator of consciousness, and he said actually the brain isn't an originator of consciousness. He believes that the brain is a like a radio station, like it transmits a signal that already exists inside something called the collective consciousness. And so we as human beings are just like our brains are like these little radio antennas that are communicating a deeper signal that connects to the collective consciousness. And I was just sitting there and I was like, man, tell me more. You know, like that, like it was one of those like trippy moments where I'm like, oh my, so I called my wife and I'm like, yeah, like he says that we're not really like just these sort of separate individuals. We're all connected and we're all part of the collective consciousness. And then when we die, we all become part of the collection again, and like an ocean, and we're all like these waves on the ocean, and the waves go down and they go back into the ocean. And really, honestly, I think deep down it was really my effort to see if there's a way for me to convince myself that my mama's still alive. I think death just, oh my God, it just does something to you. If somebody dies, you're like, I can't believe they're gone. And I still just every day I'm just thinking about my mother, and it's like, I just want to believe she's out there. You know what I mean? And it's just it's so these are the weird things I think about. And thank you for putting up with my weird ass. All right. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. And we'll see you all very, very soon. Someone asked about our kids programs and stuff. Black Millionaires of Tomorrow. That's the URL, blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. If you want to come to the Economic Elevation Summit or virtually, whatever it is, you can go to economicelevation.summit.com. That's going to be May 9th and 10th coming up pretty soon. Economicelevation.summit.com. Also, I will be speaking at a marriage and relationship event at a church in Detroit. I don't have the name of the church, but if you live in Detroit and you want to come in, you can go to my Instagram, Dr. Boyce Finance, and I put some information up there about the church. Here we go. It's a marriage conference for the Daylight Christian Center Church at 15831 West 7 Mile Road. So we're below 8 Mile, and it's a 2025 marriage conference. And it looks like they have a lot of great people. We'll be speaking on Thursday night at 7. But then they have Dr. Robert and Dr. Reva Watkins. Another Dr. and Mrs. Watkins. It's crazy. That's going to be on Friday, and then they have some events on Saturday, Q&A with Dr. Jerome F. and Dr. Teresa Talley and Dr. Robert and Dr. Reva Watkins. Okay, so they got Watkinses everywhere. Yeah, so it looks pretty cool, and it's in Detroit, and the Instagram's on my or the information's on my Instagram, and the All Black National Convention is going to be in Atlanta on the weekend of August 24th and 25th. I checked with my team to make sure the tickets were ready. They should be ready this week. So I'll let everyone here get access to them first. And it's going to be the biggest convention we've ever had. We're partnering with the Black Business League, run by Dr. Ken Harris, and so there'll be thousands of people there, and it's going to be really amazing. And I think you guys are going to enjoy the convention this year. And so we're because it's the first time we've ever partnered. It's our 10th year anniversary, and we're really proud because it's black owned, it's black funded, no corporate money, no government money, none of that. We didn't attach ourselves to a bunch of goofy celebrities. We actually found people that were really impacting our community and our people, and you guys supported it. And so this is our 10th year, so we're really excited. All right. So anyway, that's it. I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for listening, and I will see you all tomorrow. If you're not on the text list for this class, just text the word morning to the number 87948. Text morning to 87948, and I'll see you.